You wait until we have some slides. Thank you all. I'm waiting just a few minutes in hopes that my slides appear. Ah, there we go. I can breathe easier and I'm not, I was going to say now my job just got so much easier. So it is absolutely just such a complete honor for me and really with true happiness that I get to give the introduction for the presidential address. I have to admit that some of the fun in getting to really give this information and give this introduction is I get to brag a little bit about my friend Roxy. And the start of every president introduction really has to begin with an adorable baby picture. So of course, I am happy to oblige. Sorry, yes, you're like, move it on, okay. And so Roxy was born in Iowa. She grew up in Redland with her parents, Grace and Fred, and her siblings, Lisa and Kathy. Following a childhood of many adventures, and you'll notice that 2 out of these 3 adventures became lifelong passions for her, she attended the University of Iowa for both undergraduate and medical school, graduating with honors and distinction AOA. She completed her general surgery residency at Michigan State, and then she traveled south for her critical care fellowship at the University of Miami. For the first 10 years of her career, she split her time between Michigan State and the University of New Mexico, holding leadership roles at each of these across the board. She was the assistant program director. She was the co-director of the critical care group. She was the program director for the fellowship. I mean, you name it. She just started the whole thing. I know. She then was recruited to the University of Oklahoma in 2001 as the trauma medical director and the chief of trauma, surgery, and surgical critical care. And she rose to be division head of general surgery, trauma, and critical care there. I think all of us really recognize that it is thanks to Roxy that Oklahoma has an organized and incredibly well-run trauma system. Now, I was able to peruse her CV and a small photo library that Jerry, her husband, gave me. Well, actually, let's admit it. It's a big photo library that I got from Jerry. And I was really stuck with some really clear themes that dominated her career. Concurrent with her dedication to the trauma family, Roxy has been committed to a variety of national organizations. And here's the first theme that I noticed. She is serious about any task that is put before her. Whether it is working on the local or the state level for trauma system development, participating in national committees and organizations, she is dedicated, she's decisive, and she gives of her time and of her energy. Roxy is a leader from the early days of being captain of this ship to developing, shaping, and running her trauma system. She sets the example and she leads with grace. Roxy does the hard work. She has the tenacity, grit, and determination to get the job done. And she does the hard work just for the sake of doing the job. Now, as a result of her hard work, admittedly, she rises to the top of every committee and every organization. Her CV is literally covered with this impressive progression from committee member to chair, organization member to president. And all because she's doing this for the fun and for the worth of the job and not for the accolades. Now, Roxy will be your greatest advocate. Now, you all may be thinking that this is kind of two very weird pictures to explain this. And I'm sure Roxy is actually thinking that she wishes she had invited someone else to give this introduction. But this actually really crystallized for me one of the things that I love about Roxy. This is Roxy. You'll be at a meeting and something has sort of been bothering you, and suddenly out of nowhere, AKA the first picture, Roxy will appear because she knows something is bothering you. And so you relay the story, which is then met with this look. And for those of you that have had this look, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? The look of, you have got to be kidding me. That is outrageous. That is not okay. Your fight became her fight. Your hill became her hill. And that's when you know that you have a friend and an advocate. So what else do I know about Roxy? She is a powerhouse. She does everything. She is always up for an adventure. She enjoys life. She also has a serious love of sports. So much of a love of sports, I can't even get it all on one slide. I mean, it is amazing. And she also is always up for fabulous headwear. Because, I mean, how else do you include the bird picture? I mean, you can't, that's in the library. You have to include the bird picture on top of the head. It looks fake, doesn't it? All right, so she never ceases to amaze me. Now, I hated to miss any of the essence of who Roxy is and what she means to us. And so I asked a few friends to help me describe who Roxy is. Now, the first friend that got in touch with me told me a story about Roxy. She said, I asked Roxy how she knew someone, and she looked at me and said, I just sat down next to her at a meeting because she wasn't sitting with anyone. And I started talking with her, and well, we've been friends ever since. Well, how long ago was that? Oh, I don't know. We've just been friends a long time now. That is Roxy. Some other descriptions of Roxy. She is incredibly humble, especially for being a complete badass. She has this unique, quiet confidence you just know when she's in the room. She is a perfect mix of determination, focus, and fun. She is deeply thoughtful, incredibly caring, and is a clear champion for her community. She is a complete role model to a generation of trauma surgeons, both male and female, about how to be graceful, kind, skilled, and generous of spirit. And the best one word to describe Roxy: genuine. So what else do I know about Roxy? Her colleagues are her family. She treats everyone with kindness, inclusion, and respect. And friends and family are number one. Now, I had hoped to have several hundred foam fingers that all of you all would now have in the audience, and you would raise your foam fingers for Roxy right now. But there was kind of this logistic about getting them to the hotel, and there's a lot and they're kind of big, so I couldn't do that. So instead, I will simply say it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you your president, Dr. Roxy Albrecht.
Oh, Clay, thank you. Yeah, I just told her she's incredible and amazing. And thank you so very much. And back at you about being genuine. Yep, we've had those moments here. So thank you again. I may read this, I may look up. I don't know how I'm going to get through this yet, but as she said, it's going to be me. And thank you all for understanding who I am. For those of you looking at this slide and looking at that word DABS, It is not Department of Alcoholic Beverage Services, okay? I found that in Utah. And don't search it on the web. It'll show some sort of cannabis, as Dr. Beisky knows. But it really is something I am very proud of, to be a diplomate of the American Board of Surgery. And I'm so happy to have Joe here as our one of our named lecturers. So I'm really humbled and honored with this presidency. I am at my happy place at this meeting, and the residents have said that in the past. They go, "We really like the meeting, Dr. Albrecht," because they have seen that other face of mine too often. But attending this meeting it surely helps with my wellness as well as my intellect. It's just a wonderful meeting, and I'm so glad I got involved with it so many years ago. I don't have any disclosures. However, in this address, I hope to reflect on my appreciation of the members of Southwest Surgery, enlighten you a little bit about some history of groundbreaking history that occurred in athletics and education, as well as changes, similarities, and challenges that occurred over my career. And finally, I want to reflect on how I think Southwest Surgery membership assisted me and can assist young members in the ongoing challenges in academic surgery. One of the benefits of Southwest Surgery is being able to go to the Southeastern Surgical Conference to participate in the passage of the gavel from Brian Richmond to Eddie Cornwell, who will be here tomorrow. He sends his regrets he couldn't be here today for the opening ceremonies. So please welcome him and introduce yourself and introduce him to Southwest Hospitality. I don't think I really have to say that, but and no, we get to participate in the activities, but the one up in the left-hand upper corner is not the best impression of contest for Kirby Bland. I think I did a really good job of him of doing an impression of him, but I did get to participate in the annual Family Feud past presidents against a group of residents. I didn't embarrass Southwest Surgery. I got a number of them right, but we didn't win. And I think there was some shenanigans going on with the scoring. But I also attended the network breakfast and had some great conversations with some young medical students who were thinking of a surgical career. I want to address at this part of the meeting, and not just at the business meeting, to thank the executive committee and the council for what they do for the association, particularly Krista Cubs. I don't know where she is there looking out, but she put together an extraordinary meeting this year. We want to continue to provide a program that allows advanced practice providers, students, residents, and faculty to present their science, but we also want to provide a broad-based general surgery topics for practicing surgeons, and I think she's done that so well. Thank you, Colleen Murphy, for the great GME program this morning. And I know Randeep Jawa isn't here, but I want to thank him for the communication committee work on the video scenarios of the do's and don'ts of the American Board of Surgery certifying exam. And finally, Sharmila Diskanaki for her service as recorder for the past several years. The changes she put forward have not only allowed us to publish the scientific session manuscripts, but several of the quick shots in the AJS. I'm indebted, I guess Russ has a look too, but I'm indebted to Russ Postier, past president, for keeping me involved in Southwest Surgery, but also for being the best chair I ever worked for. He was stern at times when I needed it, but he was there for his mentorship, sponsorship, and assistance. But he gave me freedom, as Clay said, to build a trauma program that I was really proud of, in a trauma system in Oklahoma, to match my passion of quality care for all patients that came through our doors. Maria Allo was the first woman president of Southwest Surgery. She supported me as her program chair. She allowed me the visibility I needed for this association to grow into the leadership of it. She set the example for the women at the meeting of getting up to the microphone, complimenting the presenters, spoke her opinion, asked some insightful questions, and at times some controversial questions. And then, speaking of getting up at the microphone, Alicia, Ernie, Mike let me into the Dallas family many years ago when I was probably one of the only members from Oklahoma there that year. They invited me to their banquet table. They invited me to golf. They made me feel comfortable and welcome. And then Ronnie, thank you for understanding years ago, given my family losses and my emotional state, that I wasn't ready for any additional responsibilities. But when I got better, you advocated for me, and I was ready to take on those new roles. So thank you for understanding me. And Clay, can't say much more, but I remember exactly where we were and my emotions in honor of gratitude when you asked me to be the vice president and join the leadership of this. I valued so much your friendship, your advice, our insightful conversations that we've had over the years at these meetings. I wouldn't be able to come to this meeting if it wasn't for my crazy partners. They are so competent, and we've grown over the years, most recently, and their hard work is why I can be here. And thank you for Elisa Cross for coming. She's the new trauma medical director this first year, because we have so many of us, that she can come and support the resident papers that she sponsored this year. Our department has always been very supportive of residents at this meeting. A number of the residents you can see in this photo are now members of this association and have continued the tradition of sponsoring future residents and students at the meeting. They are currently moderators at this meeting, panel members, and speakers. So thank you, Ben, Josh, Morgan, Frank, Allie, Alex, Lindsay, and Emily, and whoever I might have forgot. Thanks for being here. Margie, Jill, Corinne, Laura, and the crew, they are this meeting. Thank you for assisting with the arrangements for these fantastic venues. Our organization, your organizational skills are amazing. You allow us to have flawless meetings and spectacular social events that keeps us coming back to this meeting. And they're carrying on a tradition that I think Noni, who we lost several years ago, would be proud of. And I have a kindred soul with Margie, because it was about the same time I lost my sister at too young of an age. My family, they weren't able to come. We have growing granddaughters and grandsons from my sister, and they have too many sports events now at this time of the year to be here. But they and Jerry's kids have been very supportive through the years of significant events in my life and Jerry's life. And Jerry, without you, there wouldn't be a talk. Literally, he fixes my slides. He told me even if the talk isn't good, the slides will be good. So he has dealt with my anxiety, and my really severe imposter syndrome traits came out in preparing for this address. And thank you so much for getting me through it and being there, being persistent. 10 years ago and coming back into my life, I couldn't be without you. I just love you so much. And he's always sitting behind the camera. So, so before I start the biggest part of the talk, I kind of learned something on how to calm myself. And I'm just going to kind of do it with her. This is Caitlin Clark.
Throws here from Clark. 4 from the line tonight.
She nailed it. She put away the shots that iced the game against South Carolina in the Final Four. So if she can calm herself like that in that big a setting, I think I can get through this talk. The next thing I want you to know is, Ronnie, I'm after your job. I took that photo. Yeah. That's Antarctica. I was privileged enough to be on a Zodiac boat one morning to go out and look at some seals, and it was just so majestic. It was just beautiful. Another thing that calms me. So my reflection on my course in medicine, surgery, trauma surgery, academic surgery was certainly not planned, and it wasn't linear. Due to course schedules and my athletic competitions in college, it took me 4.5 years to get through college. I chose medicine when I was discouraged by professors at Iowa State from applying to veterinary school. I did a preliminary year in surgery before choosing general surgery. I took a research year to better my chances in surgical oncology. See there where that got me. Trauma. I had 3 academic jobs, as Clay said, and this last one's been great and for the last 21 years. Then during that reflection, I realized that I didn't know all the historic details that occurred before I went to college on an athletic scholarship. Looking and researching, I found my path would not have ended up probably the same. It would have been more difficult for a woman had it not been for some historic legislation in the 1970s. Unlike urban schools in Iowa in the 1970s, the rural schools had girls and boys sports, and girls athletics sometimes outperformed the boys athletics. My game was softball. My passion was actually golf, but I never mastered it, even though I tried to play it in high school and still do try to play it. I made the softball team the summer after my 8th grade year in grade school. Mainly I was an fielder, but I played a number of positions to keep me in the game because of my hitting skills. Back then we didn't have designated hitters. The team on this slide went on to place 3rd in the state championship my junior year. The summer after my junior year, in 1975, I was preparing to go to college. My mother was scouring the newspaper and tucked away in the sports section. And I don't know why she was reading the sports section, because she didn't like sports. She found this, and with encouragement, she asked me to contact the coach. So I contacted the coach, tried out for the team, and got an athletic scholarship. And notice these uniforms are a little bit more not as nice as our high school uniforms back then, but I was a 4-year letter winner. I was captain for 3 years, and I received all-around team member my last year. As I reflect on the opportunity to play sports in high school and in college, it really did set my path for the future. Participation in sport, especially at a young age, is reported to improve not only physical well-being, but also self-esteem, image, confidence, prioritization, concentration, teamwork, psychological skills to deal with emotional highs and lows of winning and defeat. Kind of sounds like traits that we needed to help us in our surgical career. This wouldn't have been possible without the passage of Title IX, the Educational Amendment of 1972. These 37 words, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, or be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination under an educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." This amendment allowed my progression through education in my career. I truly believe that, and I am indebted to those who pushed for the passage, and want to just briefly highlight them in this address. The first is the godmother of Title IX, Bernice Sanders, or as they call her, Bunny Sanders. She realized that she was a victim of sex discrimination when she was denied an interview for a faculty position when she was obtaining her doctorate degree in education. They were hiring men into positions without even interviews. And although there were many women postdocs, there was no female faculty at her institution. She didn't think this should be allowed or was fair, and went to work to correct it. She found that the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 didn't include sex. The Title VII covered sex discrimination, but it was only for employment, not for education. Similar to my mother, she went to work and started reading. And she found a footnote that led to an executive order that was actually signed in 1967, but enacted in 1968, barring discrimination due to sex, race, creed, color, national origin for federal government, defense industry, and federal contractors. This set into motion some work. She worked with the Women's Equity Action Lead. It led to infraction reports to the Office of the Federal Contracting compliance against universities and colleges that were governmental contracts. This eventually led to some sanctions that were levied on these institutions. When you levy infractions on universities and large colleges, that gets the attention of Congress. So Bernie then partnered with Edith Green and Senator Birch Bayh. Green was Mrs. Education and all about equal opportunities for all. Senator Bayh's passion in this stemmed from his wife being denied application to law school with a "women need not apply" letter to one of her applications. The amendment was originally didn't pass in the House, but Bayh was able to gain some support in his version and get it through the Senate. And then it went back to Edith Green's, Representative Green's subcommittee. And with this co-sponsorship of Patsy Mink, the first woman of color in the House of Representatives. And her story was she was denied a medical school application or admission because of quotas. She also said that she went to law school, but was unable to find a position at a law firm. So she turned her efforts to Congress. She was the engine to get Title IX through the subcommittee, through the House, and to have it signed by President Nixon. To honor her for her initial and continued support to overcome threats to the amendment, it was eventually changed to the Patsy Mink Equal Opportunity Educational Act. As I said, Title IX was signed into to law by President Nixon June 23rd, 1972, and we've been celebrating the 50 years of Title IX this past year. And though it was an educational bill, as you know, my benefits were first in activity and athletics. Another giant that I worked with and knew was Dr. Christine Grant. She was our women's athletic director at the University of Iowa. And when I went there, we had men's two separate departments. What I didn't know, though, was that I was in the midst of a giant with her. She was a giant in the Title IX movement. She came from Scotland. She was appalled by the lack of opportunities for women in the United States. She was an activist for what she felt was right and what was fair. She was a negotiator who gathered support from not only the university president and the men's athletic director, but from Hayden Fry, the football coach at that time. She participated on national committees with some dignitaries, as you can see, Martina Navratilova and Billy King. She felt that girls and women deserve fair opportunities to participate in sports as well as education. And she was quoted to say that it's a sin not to allow that. Title IX was predicted to lead to some downfalls in men's and sport, boys and men's sport. But as you can see, boys and girls opportunities just continue to increase after its passage. There are numerous challenges over the years from special interest groups and changes with administration, many of which were halted or reversed through support of passionate men and women who, like Dr. Grant, continued to fight for this, what was right and what was fair for both boys and girls. Similar in college, opportunities for men and women increased. Male participation continues to lead in college sports. However, one of the prongs of Title IX is that participation opportunities for women and men is substantially proportionate to their respective enrollments of full-time undergraduate students. With women enrollment in colleges rising over 50% now, these lines may need to and may converge. And it probably won't involve significant changes in men's opportunities. It'll probably continue to increasing women's opportunities and an addition of with the addition of emerging sports such as rugby, triathlon, equestrian, and at Iowa, they recently added women's wrestling because of the big following in wrestling in both Iowa and in Oklahoma, where I'm at. There have been changes in facilities also. This is a Big Ten. The top part is the Big Ten tournament that we hosted in 1977 at the University of Iowa. Gone are the days of city parks. We didn't have any fences and we had playground equipment back out in left field. And yes, a behemoth hit the ball all the way out there one time, not me. We've had limited fan seating. Our coaches drove us in vans. We took buses to Texas to have tournaments. It's good to see the facilities that are upgrading now to be similar to the men's facilities. Player experience and tournaments are also similar for championships. Some of the women's championships, such as softball and basketball, and actually yesterday, women's gymnastics championships are televised on national TV. Another area of another prong is funding. That funding needs to be equalized for both men and women. Total funding and scholarships have improved in the non-football Division I subdivision of the NCAA. However, it remains a significant gap in coaching compensation between men and women. And there's even a larger gap if you put in the Division I football teams. The diversity of coaching also remains an issue. Only 40% of the women's team's coaches are women. And it's even worse if you look at the racial hiring within college athletics. Sports do have benefits beyond athletics. This study in 2010 by a former chief economist at United States Department of Health equated a rise in girls' participation in high school sports to be 3.5% rise in the probability to attend college, 2% rise in obtaining a college degree, and 4% rise in the labor force. And a lot of that was in male-dominated areas. I know it doesn't seem like much. Data, though, shows now that women have surpassed men in undergraduate enrollment, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and doctoral degrees. But we still do lag a little bit in the STEM area, or if you add arts, it's now STEAM. If you add R, it's now or reading and writing, it's now STREAM. And the hopes is that the reinvigoration of the space program and the Artemis astronauts will have an impact on this area. So given the benefits of sports to women, in my opinion, I think going forward, we need to start early. We need to, many pro athletes are involved in numerous initiatives in youth sport, especially in the underserved and underprivileged areas. There are initiatives to develop women's coaches for women's teams from former players. I did it in college. I had a great mentor and sponsor to teach me how to be a coach for young women. And Joe talked about that this morning too. We need people who teach out there, but they have to be trained to be good teachers. There's ongoing legislation to continue to work towards fairness in athletic opportunities. I said women's sports have made it to the national networks to help grow the sport. They've attracted more fans, former athletes. I have a picture there of my friend Sue, who's a retired colorectal surgeon. She significantly advocates and is great philanthropist for Iowa women's athletics. I and some former women athletes go back to most of our softball events to support our teams and to support the growth of women's sports. Go Hawks. Jerry, thanks for putting that one in there. So my review of post-Title IX athletic opportunities stimulated me to have a reflection on what has occurred in medicine following its passage. Prior to Title IX, there was reported quotas for women in medical school. Now, when I started, about a third of my class was women. And now we see that women have outnumbered men in medical school applications as well as matriculation since 2016. There was only one woman on faculty at Iowa when I was a medical student. I was the first woman to complete the residency in Grand Rapids, part of Michigan State University. I was the only fellow at the University of Miami, the third woman that had gone through Dr. Savetta's program. And I was first woman surgeon to go back to Grand Rapids and practice for 5 years before I went to New Mexico. Why did I choose this and why did I stay with it? One is I had fantastic fellow residents and fantastic fellow fellows and male faculty members who sponsored, mentored, and supported me and encouraged me to keep involved and to keep going. You know, I don't know how many times, and I'm sure there's several of you in here that heard that, you know, you're a woman, you're not going to make it. And I was like, you know, whatever, I'm going to keep on going. Not going to deter me. That's my favorite word. But I looked outside, you know, this top row of female mentors and sponsors who rose in leadership. That was before me, and it was not easy. I can't imagine what they did. I truly admire them. They established themselves clinically. They rose in academic ranks. They worked on committees locally and nationally. And I believe, like Dr. Grant, they pushed to have a voice and to allow inclusion of women such as myself and the other women in acute care surgery on this slide. To take a role to increase the numbers of women in academic surgery. Young acute care surgeons now have a number of women, as you see in this slide below, that I know personally and would welcome any of you, and I'm sure to be their mentor and to help upcoming academic surgeons. And like Clay said, you know, I met Olga Jonason in the lounge of the women's bathroom and had a conversation. Okay. Anna Ledgerwood and I out on the porch at the Grand Hotel in Mackinac Island. Peggy Knutson invited me onto a chairlift with her at Western Trauma, and we had great conversations. Mary McCarthy wrote me letters for promotion, you know, just very good mentors. And Carol Gilbert, the final one on the right-hand side in the upper, she's not well known by anybody, but there's a lectureship that I was allowed to give in Roanoke in her name, and it has built a great program in Roanoke. So as you can see, women in surgery is also growing in numbers. They've gone from these 1 or 2 women residency to last year, 46% of the general surgery residents were women. I know these increased numbers and percentages haven't changed all that's unfair and all the difficulties that women have in surgery, but the numbers have the potential for more voices and continued advocacy for change. I surely appreciate the diversity that we've had in our residency. You start in the center and go around from clockwise. Our last few classes, and in the lower left-hand area is our incoming intern class, or last year's incoming intern class. The change in residency is also reflected in the number of women who become board certified. The little blip, I think, that we see there is COVID and what happened with all the exams, but more women are becoming board certified. And that's important. Our patients deserve that. We know that a diverse workforce improves patient care. And, sorry to put this one up there, but women have better outcomes when they are treated by women surgeons. This was picked up a few weeks back on the national news. It highlighted an all-women heart transplant team from the University of San Francisco. I also, I do follow social media, and an all-women call team is not an uncommon photo to see on social media these days, and as well as diversity in the call teams. I went back, I want to back up a little bit and go back to the academic side. We continue to see an increase in women's shares, and some of them down on the lower right-hand side are moving to deans and chancellors and chief executive health system officers. But we do continue to struggle in some areas, and that's in academia. 25% of the associate professors and 14% of the full professors in surgery are women. It's not a pipeline issue. Given the growth of surgeons that I can see, we need to attract into academic practice teachers who have the talent to teach and to do research and to push science. We need coaches, we need sponsors for these trainees to continue to close. We need to continue to close the compensation gap, and we need to change the culture to allow women to progress in academic surgery. So my simple understanding of how to do that, start early. Geekapalooza, several of our faculty got involved with that, with the Girl Scouts. We need to participate in school and undergraduate and medical school mentoring. We established a Association of Women's Surgery chapter at Oklahoma, and we had Carla Pugh as a visiting professor. You can become a mentor for inside and outside your institution. I was a mentor for Dr. Park last year as part of the AAST. You need to write strong letters of promotion. You need to, for advancement, for fellowships, for association memberships, nominate faculty for honors and awards, invite women leaders to visit as visiting professors and do grand rounds. And similar to industry, team compatible junior faculty with senior faculty. So where does Southwest Surgery fit into this to kind of get to the end of this address? We've had progressive leadership that took opportunities to assist in surgery development. Courtney, I saw you back there in her presidential address. Her charge from Ronnie was to change the phenotype and the age and the demographic of this association. Our council and executive committee has become more diverse and more inclusive. 3 of our recent presidents were women. Our association has approximately 30% of the members that have reported their gender as female. At this meeting, we had 40% of our panel members and 33% of the moderators, and 2 of our 3 named lecturers are women. I encourage, like I have on this slide, that's how I got here. That's how I got involved. Submit abstracts, get on the podium, sponsor residents. And that's for anybody, not just women. This association is a great place to start that path to leadership and that resume that you need for advancement in academic surgery. In addition to the learning opportunities, it's a great place to bring your family. It's a great place to develop genuine, authentic, lasting friendships with with other members. It's an association. It's an association to find members or mentors, sponsors, and allies. I didn't meet all my sponsors and allies at the meeting. I was out there on the golf course trying to slave away. I played with a lot of teams because a number of Oklahoma people didn't play golf. So I just threw my name out there and got put on a team. Someone once said in jest that it was before we had a differentiation between the women's longest drive and men's longest drive and closest to the pin. They said they may not remember the Jack Barney Award, but they will remember who won the closest to the pin. True story. And then they said, especially when it's a girl. Southwest Surgery offers camaraderie, some dancing with past President Kathori, lots of handshakes, lots of high fives. I encourage those who are not members to become a member. For those who are members, keep encouraging, keep sponsoring your younger faculties to come to this meeting and get involved and stay involved. And I want to leave this address with something that I felt is better said than I could ever say in a closing statement at the farewell of the New Zealand Prime Minister.
The former New Zealand Prime Minister,
Well,
Jacinda
that's not
Ardern, has
it.
bowed out of Parliament with a standing ovation following her farewell speech
You
earlier.
added more to
The
it.
42-year-old spoke about the honor she's felt representing her country and steering its people through some of its hardest times, including natural disasters, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the 2019 Christchurch mosque attack. She shocked the country earlier this year when she announced she was stepping down as Prime Minister and retiring from politics, saying she no longer had enough in the tank.
I do hope I've demonstrated something else entirely, that you can be anxious, sensitive, kind, and wear your heart on your sleeve. You can be a mother or not. You can be an ex-Mormon or not. You can be a nerd, a crier, a hugger. You can be all of these things. And not only can you be here, you can lead just like me. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure to be the president of the association. Thank you all. Celebration. Might play that song.
Get you two in front of the slide here.